My story starts with a song and a video. I'm in no hurry. I don't know if you remember that. Rather be a little late. Oh, so you do. All right. Back in 1990. So I joined KTN so those days you used to go through probation. My first job was as a continuity announcer. So for those of you who don't know what that is so back in the days we used to introduce programs. As in next is this. Now you don't do that. You just got a pay-per-view, and that's what my first job was in the media. It was scary because my background is actually graphics and interior design. Yeah, that's what I studied. I didn't study journalism. But so when we were growing up, we were told what to study. So I remember in my family, you either became a doctor, a lawyer, or an architect. And I remember when I told my mom that I was interested in broadcasting. Yes, she slapped me. But then, it was, this is what you're supposed to do. I said my story started with a song because the Matatu song introduced me to the opportunity to get into television, and hence how I ended up on KTN. Was I scared? Yes, like I said in my preface, it was very scary because, first of all, I grew up in Kariakor. And mtaani, there's this saying that guys say, maze mpandangazi ushuka, maze jimu siona tunaweza, utashuka. These are people I grew up with. A lot of them, of course, very supportive. And so I was, when I got into KTN, the realization that I'm getting into an industry I have no clue about. But I was just excited. First of all, the fact that I actually managed to get in with no training whatsoever. I remember this lady, and I'll talk about gatekeeping. The lady who hired me was called Matilda Odwor. Didn't ask me any journalistic question. She just told me, come tomorrow, start, you'll meet him, hivo, And later on, later, he's going to ask, by the way, what is it that you saw in me that you gave me that opportunity? It wasn't an interview, really. And she said, there's a spark that many young people at that time didn't have. And she told me, I've gone through a lot. And she told me, there's a spark I saw in you. And I hope you keep it. After my probationary 3 months, I think, or 6 months, I was promoted to presenter and production assistant. I had a producer who was a Mzungu called Chris Haber, who I thought was the coolest guy. And then one time, this Tom guy comes and says, listen, so we have these shows, these music things that we play Monday to Friday, but we want to make them into shows. Do you think you can do it? For a second, I almost said no, because it was a fact. No, of course I can't. But I said, yes, I can. He said, okay, sir, so you and Chris, work it, whatever, do something. And then, luckily, I loved music. I loved music a lot. And for the first time in a long time, when I did, these two bosses, I'm trying to say, I don't want to say wazungu, that sounds racist, but you know what I mean. So they cheered for this guy who has no journalistic training. But boom, this guy has come up with shows and names. Oh my goodness. Jimmy. Oh, wow. And I'm thinking, what? And then they stood up and clapped. Oh my goodness. They stood up and clapped for this guy, this kijana from Kariakor. That was huge for me. I started doing the shows. Monday, Rap Him. Tuesday was Kaskas, the most popular actually. Wednesday was Rastra. Jamadelic was Thursday. And then Rhythmics was Friday. And then there used to be this section in the dailies called Letters to the Editor. And Letters to the Editor was like your current Twitter or X. And for 4 years, I dominated Letters to the Editor. Not in accolades, Kenyans couldn't stand me. It was criticism after criticism after hate. You name it. Who does this guy think he is? He's a wannabe. He's polluting our kids' minds with those music. Oh my goodness. For 4 years, I never saw anything positive on letters to the editor. Forget that. Every other day. So we used to, do they still have it? Like you call the office and there's a switchboard. Yeah, oh God, yeah, switchboard. Do they still have, yeah. So there's a lady who sit there with a huge tripod and then she'll pick calls. And every other phone call was complaints. Please remove this guy from TV, from our living room. And what she used to do is she used to write those messages. And then she walks into a presentation office and says, Jimmy, what messages? It's there. So I look at them, hate. Can you imagine? 4 years. It was the most depressing 4 years of my life. At some point, I was like, you know what? Let me go and actually get a job in graphic design and interior. Because I've trained for that. I'm good at that. It's natural for me. And I started looking for jobs. And then one time, I get a call and I'm told, there's a guy called Martin Karaoke who's called and says you call back. So who's Martin Karaoke? So I look at this message, it's Martin Karaoke. It just says, Martin Karaoke, Coca-Cola. I'm like, oh my God, now what have I done? Who have I angered now? Coke, what have I done? Anyway, so I call, and this chick picks up. Hi, say, yeah, my name is Jimmi Gathu. I'm calling back. Oh, yes, could you come to offices? I'm scared because, remember, it's 4 years of hate. My drive was, what can I do to be liked? What can I do for people to say, we like you, Jimmi Gathu, and we love your shows? So that, for the 4 years, that was it. I check evil. So it was until I was like, you know what am I doing? So when I was called to Coca-Cola, I thought, you know what? It's a complaint. So anyway, I sat there. So he starts talking. So the guy starts talking, says, and starts talking about stuff. So you know, Coca-Cola, this is what we're about. You know, we want to really target the youth. I mean, we are youth. But I can't. And I'm just looking at this guy, okay, so it's about the youth. So I've done something bad to the young people. And and he kept going, and I'm looking at him. And then Martin Karaoke realizes this guy doesn't know what's going on. And so he looks at the Mzungu who's talking and says, what? He says, this young man doesn't know what we're talking about. So he looks at me and says, do you know what I'm talking about? I said, no, and I'm not sure I want to know. And so they laugh. I'm thinking, oh God, let me tell you, when somebody wants to kill you, have you seen that? Somebody wants to kill you, that's what they do. And I thought, this is the end of me. And says, do you not know you're the most popular young man in Kenya? I said, I don't think it's true. Have you read the letters to the editor? And the lawyer laughs. I said, okay. So the Muslim said, come round. So there's, those days there used to be these computers with the big screen. So I look at, I'd never seen these things before. There was ratings, research or something like that. I can't remember the name of that research company. And I look at these figures, graphs. So he says, this is you. I'm looking at these graphs. And said, this is you for the last, very smart. For the last 4 years. My focus was on this small thing called letters to the editor. Sorry, whichever daily. This small thing that maybe imagine that these people who've been squeezed into this column called letters to the editor is the entire country. As opposed to what I'm seeing now. Oh my goodness, what? And then he says, so yeah. And so to cut the long story short, I became the first youth ambassador for Coca-Cola. In 1995, I think. Oh, and that's when I made my first million. This kijana from Kariakoo. Nilingangana tu. Nilingangana. Wow. And so, My life changed like that overnight. So I'm the guy. I'm the guy. I am the guy. Huyo kijana wa Kariakoo ndio huyo, you know. And then in 6 years, so being Coca-Cola Youth Ambassador was 5 years. Year 6, the FM revolution comes in. And brand Jimmi Gathu, that has been consistent and has been this big thing, it's become a household name, is in the threat of being declared, not redundant, no, not redundant, irrelevant. Because now there were new celebrities. FM stations came with new celebrities, like greats like Caroline Mutoko, Robert Orobi, Bob Kyoko, Zane Verji, and many others, okay? And so, my popularity started waning for obvious reasons. I mean, come on, you are the guy then, now kuna wengine, na kuna FM radio, Capital FM. Oh my God, when Capital FM started, whoa! And so for me, I was like, okay, how do I get there? I'm the guy. How come no one from Capital is calling me? Si mtu pigia mwenye nyumba kwanza. Munapigia kina Caroline kwa nini na mwajui? And so I realized, there's another route to it. You have to humble yourself and start from scratch, just like you did 6 years ago. And that's what I did. I said, for me to succeed, because I'm not a trained journalist, this is media. I'm not a trained media person. I was telling myself that. So I'll do what I did 6 years ago. And I took myself to Capital, and I said, I'm interested in being a presenter. And of course, when I walked in, they're like, Jimmi Gathu. I'm like, yeah, okay. So does that mean I qualify? It's like, no, you have to start. You have to start from the beginning, which I did. It was tough. It was tough. But I bore it all, and I got into Capital, which was another experience altogether. And then I realized I had this passion, or this drive, this innate drive in me to gatekeep. To gatekeep, because if it wasn't for Matilda Odwor, Lydia Manyasi, who actually helped me very much in terms of creating the music shows that, quite frankly, defined our 90s, I would not be here. And so I took that mantle, and I said, you know what? Let me also give you opportunities, because I'm in a position to. I'm deputy programs controller, so I can do this. And I did that for many people. Eve D'Souza, who was a teacher by training. He wasn't really that bad at Capital. It got worse when I moved to other places. I got poached to Kiss 100. Wow. I got poached to Kiss 100. And at the time when I was going to Kiss, I was still doing Hits No Homework. And my ratings were quite high. And then I got to Kiss, where they had a structure of how the music sounds, and so on and so forth. And for Kiss, it's the opposite. Capital is about the music you play at that time. I don't know if it's changed. For Kiss, it's you. Panganga yako ndo inauza. Yeah? And then came a political wave that had the chant, Yote yawezekana bila Moi. And then shortly, this and that happened, and then the first ever 4-hour radio talk show called The People's Parliament started. I'd never done a talk show. And at that time, it was, of course, bordering towards current affairs, police. Mi najua tu ngoma. Nizo story ya Babyface na kuambia, una story ya Moi, mi sijui, mi namuogopa kwanza. Okay? Namuogopa. So everyone was talking about police, ni. And so, of course, Kwak was like, hey, guy, by the way, so by the time we were starting, the People's Parliament was like instant. Whoa! Because, it was different. It was a talk show. you could, and we're talking about more, you couldn't do that, eh? Back in the day, you couldn't talk about the president. That is the way you're talking about the president now. Woo! Can't, yeah? Those days, so the People's Parliament was the first show that allowed you to say, Uyamoya ende, and nothing happens to you. Are you getting what I'm saying? It was crazy. And so I was getting into a swing of things. Sini gumzo too. So what did I bring into the gumzo? Story about. You know that, gossip, where you hear, a moi ni mzungu kupita and ajipakarangia black. You go on there and you say that. You know that kind of nonsense. So I went and, I'm the guy. I'm the guy once again, okay? And I'm hosting this show, man. It's the biggest show. It's the biggest show in the region. At some point, I was transferred to Classic. So we've been training you for management and strategy. So now, exam. Classic 105. Huh? Yeah. And my move to Classic, which was a Nairobi-only station, as opposed to Kisu, which is a national station, I lost 50% of my audience. That's a lot, eh? And it was tough because from somebody who commanded 4 hours of late night radio to nothing. I couldn't play music, and there are times I would sit and just wait for guys to call, and no one was calling. Anyway. And so I thought, okay, so what do I do with this station? What's the thing, And so one time an incident happened. A 4-year-old girl was raped. It was a national story. It was so painful. And so I decided to talk about it. And boom, the lines started buzzing, which had never happened for 3 months. And I thought, oh my goodness, yes, idea. That's an idea. That's an idea. So at this time, programs controller, Classic 105, which was at ground zero in terms of ratings. We were nothing. Minor and I had been moved. So even Minor, who was a popular drive time presenter on KISS, has been brought to Classic, is struggling. And so I called Minor, I told Minor, listen, Kesho, don't talk about politics. Why? Because this is the thing. This is what Kenyans want. Kenyans don't want politics. They just want stories za kawaida zile zinawa feel. Ati? Nisikize wewe. Okay? So we set out to do it. And here's, again, you expect people to again say, hey, you know what, I didn't think about that. Well done. Woo! See? Yeah? You guys are trying to do what? You're trying to do what? Talk about failure when you want it. You guys won't last 3 months. Can't say names, but you know what I mean. Anyway. But we succeeded from oblivion to number 2 in 6 months. Challenges don't happen consistently or the same as you rise. You will rise. Sometimes almost smoothly. And then you relax. You know what I mean? So challenges start when you relax and think you're the guy. Anyway, so success. I've created a show called Minor and Kingangi. It's the hottest show to date. You know what I mean? It's still big there today. I think, it's still running. And then I got poached to Royal Media. Hey! So I've come from the University of Patrick Kwaku and John Wilkins in terms of strategy, radio strategy and management, okay? So I've gone to Royal Media to retire a station called YFM. Yeah. and think of something else. I retired YFM, did a bit of research, and started Hot 96. No one trusted me. And when I say no one, I'm talking about management. And so for a good 1 year, it was turmoil. My budgets were dropped, my strategy was changed. And so I started believing this story because it was a loud thing. And of course, at this point, I am head of Hot 96. I am visible. And this industry is very small. So people know this is happening. And the word is going around that people are laughing. And the funny thing is, I don't know if people were laughing or I thought people were laughing. Whatever the case, it hit me badly. It was bad. And so I started looking for somewhere to go. somewhere. I can't. This thing I'm thinking I'm the guy. I'm not. Why am I lying to myself? I'm not that guy. Maybe I'm a good presenter, but managing? Well, angalia vile nimeanguka. Nimeretire YFM na nimeangusha ingine. And I'm being told, just as I was giving up, an editorial guru called Washira Arora walks in. And he's been knowing what's going on. So he tells me, come. So I see what's happening. And I see you're being big word left, right, and center. So I want to remove you from radio and put you where I know you do best. And for me, I'm not thinking, oh, phew, thank you for saving. I'm thinking, what? Actually, you're removing me because, so you just say I'm a failure. He's trying to rescue me, but me, I'm thinking he's just sugarcoating the fact that I failed. Just say I failed. At first, I said, let me think about it. Later on, I'm like, okay, sir. So he says, I want you. So he calls another newbie called Kobe Kihara, who was a photographer and a content developer. And he says, you two, I want you to go put your heads together and think of a breakfast show, but for television. What? Yes, I want it to be the most talked about show. So don't give me nonsense, eh? Go and do a good job. Go, think, research, what, come back. And so that gave birth to Power Breakfast on Citizen. So guys, I'm riding high, okay? Until I get to my next positioning. But when you do that and you imagine it is by your power, then God needs to bring you down. He used to tell you, punguza your volume. Punguza your volume. And sometimes you don't listen. Yeah? And so I didn't listen because I thought, I'm riding high. By the time I got to, this is my 6th station. I was rolling. I was rolling. One thing led to another. I didn't see it coming. I was too blinded by success. I think it's my own success. I was blinded. I won't lie, I was blinded. I had money. Si ya kuomba, ya kazi yangu. My phone used to ring every 30 minutes for years. People liked me, so I thought, mimi nule jamaa. Oh, Jimmy mazee, sijui nimefungiwa nyumba na usinilipe hiyo sideni. Yeah, you go. That's how friendships are made, Ama. Sindio? I don't know what happened. I didn't see it anyway. Then things I just started going wrong. I was removed from television, from a show I created. And so I was called to the office by the Mdosi. And HR was sitting there. And this guy tells me, so, I will never forget. So, Mr. Superstar, your sell-by date has come. And I thought he was joking. I actually laughed. I said, what did you say? And then he flung around his laptop and showed me numbers that were not true, but I couldn't see it. They were not true numbers, but I didn't know what he was doing. It was such a nice setup. You know what I mean? And tells me, so he was shouting, excited. He looks at me straight in the eye and says, boss, do we fire you or do you want to resign? That was the first time in 25 years I was asked that question. And then he says slowly, like I said, your sell-by date has come. And so I said, I'll resign. But I'm saying, atunajua kunifuta kazi. Unajua mimi nani? Tona. And so I told my wife, you know what, these guys are about to Ufala. Let me chill. I'll try and I'll start my own thing. It's me ndole jama. So I left in August, September, October, November. Nikaka wananipa mshahara yangu in piecemeal. Then in January, I got a call. Hey, boss, niaje fiti. So we're looking for a presenter. I'm like, what did I tell you, man? I had to sell by date imefika. It's me only jama. And so I joined this station. And that station was the things that happened in that station was and it was like everything I had gone through combined. Everything I had gone through. Again, I came, so I was hired as a presenter, and then I became a programs controller. And then, I'm from my experiences. Remember, I have come from a trainee to a senior presenter. Yes, I was a management trainee to a head of station. So I know this game. And I went with that in this organization. 1.5 years later, as let me tell you the worst thing, kuna kitu mbaya kama unatoka home, unapiga mamako, unapiga wife wako bosu, watu wako bosu, na jioni, go to work. You think you go back home now, at 8:30, a colleague comes and says, Jimmy, you need to automate the station. We have a meeting, to meeting. So to get me, yeah. Before that, my wife is calling. Now, my wife doesn't call me when I'm on air because she knows I can't pick. I'm on air. But she's calling. So I went downstairs to an auditorium. And then my wife's calling and I pick. I said, hey, babe, I'm in a meeting. Babe, look at your WhatsApp. I put the phone down and I hear, so guys, it's sad to say, but sadly we have to declare some people redundant. The first envelope. This guy, this celeb, this genius, this trailblazer for 26 years, who at that point had the biggest breakfast show in the country. Bahasha ya kwanza. Yeah, so when you hear your name, please come and get your envelope. Okay, don't laugh. My official name is James Gathu, like James Bond. You know what I mean? Sorry. James Gathu. The first envelope. It was a shocker. The other one you told, do we fire you or do you right? You number tumekufu yani hatukuhitaji. And let me tell you, that was the beginning of. And let me tell you what it's about. When God wants to take you to another level, He has to break you. It is the most painful, most degrading, most demeaning, most humbling, and eventually worth it. And so things happened. I didn't have a job. Not just I didn't have a job, no one wanted to hire me. No one called me and said, hey, okay, one guy called me, but then later on I think they changed their mind. I can't remember. But no one called me and told me, Ala, niaje, si ukuja hapa tukona. No one called me. My phone stopped ringing. So I thought, maybe they don't know. So I would call people like, okay, if we hear something, we'll let you know. You know that kind of thing, eh? Yeah. If you hear something, we'll let you know. No one called. And everything in my life got tested. Everything that I imagined I was came tumbling down. Everything. And so I was in debt. Like Murunga was saying, sometimes you don't want to say that you've got challenges. And so because you want to be that Superman that you've always been, because society says you have to be that person. This guy came, we were sitting somewhere, quite public. I'm Jimmi Gathu. I may not be doing well, but I'm Jimmi Gathu. Came and grabbed me from a car and dragged me, kuja, okay, in front of people. And told guys, tell me what I do with this guy. This guy has my money. Nimpige. Na nitozi kwanza, sijalipa rent, leo nalala kwako. Can you imagine? My guy. That was embarrassing. It was embarrassing. And he embarrassed me and he made sure, yeah. And as I walked back to my friend's car, and I could hear people talking. So those are things that I went through as Jimmi Gathu. This guy, I'm a household name. Please don't forget that when I go somewhere, people say, hey, Jimmi Gathu, hey, ukopi squeezy, tumekuota sana. Sorry, I'm looking at you sana. Tumekuota sana, maze, uko pretty, yeah. No. I'm still the guy. Broke. No job. The ridicule of community. The lead in any joking story. I'm that guy. And so I was like, you know what? It's the truth. No one has called. I am a failure. It's a fact. I am a failure. Kubali. And so I did. And I became a recluse. And by the way, I'm struggling to come out of it. It's not easy. Because even when I used to go to clubs, sometimes, unazaenda. People, I walk in and people look at me. I'm thinking they're looking at me because they're like, oh my God, whoa, yeah, maskini. Kumbe they're like, oh, hey, there. Me, I'm thinking, what? They're laughing. I do what? I leave. The most difficult thing is not the journey. The most difficult thing is accepting that you've hit rock bottom. That's the most difficult thing. Accepting, nimepiga chini. That's the most difficult thing. I don't know about for women, but for guys, that's the most difficult thing. Difficult. And so I said, okay, nimekubali. I'm rock bottom. Accept. Jimmi Gathu, accept. Nimekubali. Uko happy? Chini. 2 questions. 3. Do you want to stay here? Do you want to dig further? Which is impossible. Or do you want to rise up? And so I said, okay, I want to rise up. That day, I remember I broke down like a child. Because when that happens is when you start seeing people, that's the reality. These are not your friends. This happened. When you accept that you're down and now you need to get up, it's the most powerful thing ever. Not the easiest, however. It doesn't mean that everything stops. The embarrassments and nini still continue. You're still in debt. So people still embarrass you. And let me tell you, I think it's worse for public figures because it's funnier. It's a better story. Guess who are embarrassed today? Sindio? There were times guys who call me, and I can tell this guy, I'm on speaker. Where, Jimmi Gathu? Pesa yangu? I can tell I'm on speakerphone. Anyway. And so, I got up. Napigwa rungu kidogo na hizo I go back. And then, you learn the word what? Nini. Audacity. Niamke, iko nini. Twende. Down again. It's not easy, man. Took me time. I had a gatekeeper. Still do. So I met my wife, Kathy, in 1994. 94. So took a date for 4 years. Then married in 98. But when shit hit the fan, our marriage took a hit. Oh, man, let me tell you, that's when you realize who your friends are. At your close friends. You sit and ask yourself, okay, so when you were too young, when you made this decision to marry, I think we were too young. Because why us? I thought these are our friends. Why are they hitting us? We were beaten, we were broken. And let me, here's the thing, when you're going through a struggle, maritally, a marital struggle, I know it's difficult to imagine. You always think that the other person is against you. But when you realize that you're all being hit, and so you think, huyu mtu anaufala. Ama huyu mtu hawezi. You also, oh my God. We were hit. We struggled. Almost tearing us apart. Actually, we were torn apart. I think the only way I can say this is there's a God, because there are times you don't even think you'll come back to where you are. You don't even imagine that you can get back to where you are, that you can go through life challenges. That days we were saying, there's no God, and if he's there, he's not on our side. Who would allow this to happen to us? Nani tumekosea? But then there are those gatekeepers, those people who wait for the ones who laugh at you. They wait for the ones who laugh at you to go, and then they come and pull you up. Those gatekeepers. There are very few in our squad, but they're there. And then God Almighty. It's amazing how next month we're celebrating 27 years together. They tried to break us, but aongeza. Couldn't. We bear the stripes. Both of us bear the stripes of what we've gone through. 27 years next month. And then, I know I'm dressed like a Gen Z. But something you learn about being a husband and a father is that sometimes you have to allow yourself to accept, to be audacious enough to realize that you're not Superman. If you are, you are not. And sometimes, your kids, not sometimes, your family, your kids don't come to you, don't love you because of the gifts or where you took them. They love you just because you're there. You're their father. You're present. And so don't make promises you can't keep, especially if you can't do anything like you used to do before. And so my family has managed to, to remind me and to give me a legacy in terms of who I am. You know what I mean? I'll tell you one thing. First of all, babe, I love you. Tumekapitia. Bado tuko. Audacity is not boldness. It's not just boldness. Audacity is vulnerability. Is taking that risk, knowing that it will go through challenges, but you can see that light at the end of the day. You have a lot of work to do, so let's go and do it. Thank you.